edition of the Sewing Guru. Now that we've attached our yokes and we put the pockets onto the back panels, in this video I'm going to show you how to attach those two back panels together. Okay, so before we do anything with the back panels, what we need to do is we need to just have a look at our front panels. As you can see, this is the front panels, we've got our front pockets, and of course I've got a fly zip, and these jeans are for a gents. Now if you've got a jeans which are going to be for a lady, you need to do this in the way that I'm going to do it, but obviously the other way around, okay? Because of course the fly closure for ladies jeans is the other way round. As I can show you here, we have here a sample of a lady's closure, which is a button closure, okay, which faces this way, okay, whereas the man's faces this way. Now as you can see, we have here a flat fill seam with our top stitching on there, okay, and of course the back panels needs to follow, this top stitching needs to follow around the back panels when they are attached together, okay. So here's our back panels, and of course this centre back seam here is going to have that same flat felled seam across the centre back. But of course what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that this basically follows on exactly the same, okay. So the way to do that is, you can see with this panel, this is the panel which is facing onto, or the top stitching is facing onto this panel. As you can see, this panel where the top stitching, it's bent round and it's facing onto this side, whereas with the ladies it's the other way on. This panel has got the top stitching where it's attached onto, and it's facing, top stitching facing this way onto this panel. So you basically need to get the panel where the top stitching is on top of. So for instance this here, the top stitching is on top of this panel, as you can see here. So that's the panel we need to be working with to get this correct to start with. So you need to get the back panel which would sit on top of this front panel, okay. So you can see that by putting the right sides together and making sure that you've got your side seams together here. So when you've done that, basically now this panel here is going to have around this crotch part the top stitching where it's going to be folded over like that. As you can see, it's folded over this way. So this top stitching, if I fold this over, it will basically carry on, as you can see, okay. It will carry on along completely aligned with this. So for instance with this, with the ladies side, obviously you're going to need the other panel where the top stitching, if I get, so the crotch, this here is the crotch part, this is the crotch part. Of course the top stitching is going to be facing this way on, so it carries on top of here, and it carries on as a nice fluid top stitching across here, as you can see, okay. So because I'm working with gents jeans, this top stitching has to carry on. So we now know that this panel, we have to just turn the seam over this way, okay. So we can discard the front panels and simply have the wrong side, or the inside of your jeans, facing you, okay, and position your other panel where the right side's facing you on top. And we've got this seam allowance here, so we've got this panel further back, as you can see, okay. So make sure that all of this is totally in alignment like so, okay. And what we're doing is we're simply just turning this seam over on top of this panel here. So we can just press this down. Oh, that's very hot. Be careful that you don't burn yourself. Right, so basically just keep pressing this down like so. So that's now aligned, and this has got to be just nicely pressed in a curve around the crutch like so. Okay, now this point here for the top stitching is very, very important that this is aligned, okay, because when I attach, I'll just pin these seams here together like so. When I open up this seam, yeah, and we go for the next part of the top stitching, this top stitching has to match as if it's carrying on right along, okay, so it all has to match completely in position. So that's why it's very important that this top stitching is matching here. Okay, so I'm just going to set this back on here, making sure that all this is completely in place and aligned in place. Just repress this. Okay, so just take your time and make sure that all of this is totally aligned like so, and make sure that this here as well stretches so that it's aligned at this point here. Okay, so there's nothing sticking out or it's too far back. Make sure it's all straight. And because jeans is a slightly stretchy fabric, you can make sure and manipulate that the seams do end up in alignment here. Okay, just press that like so. Okay, and when you're happy with that and that's all aligned, what we're doing is with the top stitching, okay, so the colour of the top stitching that you're using, so in my case it's a green, we're stitching from here around to the top at this point here, okay, but we're not stop stitching at the edge, we're stitching a centimetre in on the raw edge, basically going through all of the panels. So we're going from here to here. So when you've done that and you've put your top stitching in across here, as you can see I've done that, okay, we can now just open up our panels like so and press this down here, okay, but again importantly you've got to make sure that this here is matching exactly as one continuous line. So just press that in place. Just open up the seams like so. Just press that down as well. Make sure that this is all aligned flat, so we can just give this a nice press. Like so, onto the other panel. Okay. Now if I put a pin, I'll just put a pin in here. Oh, just going to pin. Like so. Yeah, so you can see that this seam is facing onto this panel here. If I get our front panel and open up the seams like so, yeah, you can see that that is now matching because this seam is facing onto this panel and this seam is facing onto this panel. So you can see that that is going to match, okay? So that's very important that you've got that right. So when you're happy with that and you've got that right, you can just put some pins in here just to hold that down basically. Just press that in place. Okay, a couple of pins there. Pin there, like so. Just to hold that in place. And what we're doing is we're top stitching on the edge this time, just to make sure that it just finishes off this seam, presses it in, okay, and keeps it aligned right along from this top point here all the way down to the crutch point here, okay. But very importantly, make sure that this is completely aligned when you're top stitching it, okay. So that has to look as if it's all carrying on as one continuous stitch, okay. So from here along to this point right here. Right, so I've top stitched across here and basically finished off the flat felled seam. We've got here, this here is the top stitching line exactly on top, and it's now one continuous line, and this is just all now finished. And of course that's our flat felled seam finished inside as well. So when you've done that and you're happy with that, you're then ready to go on to the next video where we're actually going to attach the front and back panels together.